Hello, friends. My name is Hussein Lagari, and I'm here to discuss war, wisdom, and the world. Today, we have two guests, Mr. Jim Lockheed, who is a traveler, humanist, and a preserver of Mother Nature, and he has been discussing with us in various sessions and conversations. So he's a great guy, and he will be today with us. Second guest is Mr. Paul Yi, and he is an experienced professional. He is originally from China, currently living here in USA. So we will be discussing war, how it affects us, and the wisdom, how it can contribute in our spheres of the life and our politics and all the things which affect directly and directly our global life. And third, the world, which is being affectees of our actions like wars, businesses, and all these things. So let's start. So I would like to ask my first question to Mr. Jim Lockheed. Mr. Jim Lockheed is an active humanitarian and fights for peace and preservation of Mother Earth and to build a future for the children around the world. Mr. Jim, we understand that defending our countries is essential for peace. But how has war become such a big business?
Welcome, everybody. We know that war is a big business. We can look at history and we can see the development of this over time, but this has been mostly a Western dialogue. We know in World War II, we know the players, USA, Soviet Union, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, and the Japanese have been, by treaty, placed out of the game. That's a good thing. Anyway, after World War II, the U.S. took up where they had been and continued. The war as a profit-making enterprise only increased. And the sales of weaponry around the world this last year was like $365 billion. And I suspect that's not the biggest number that you could probably come up with. The U.S. is the leading weapons manufacturer in the world. China is the second in manufacturing weapons, but China is not involved in very much of an outside market. China's involvement with the weapon industry is more for their home protection. The U.S. has created this industry that has created some of the biggest companies in the world. We know some of the names, in history. We know Alfred Nobel, who was a big weapons manufacturer in Sweden and has created the Peace Prize. The Peace Prize, is not as honored around the world because it's kind of gotten corrupted. Anyway, so that was the China. And so anyway, this has become a very big industry, and it's only getting bigger, and we want it to become much smaller.
Exactly, because currently more than 500 billions of arms being exported all around the world, in which 40% of those arms were exported by US alone. So my next question will be to Mr. Paul Yi. Paul Yi has over 70 years of wisdom as a successful American with roots in China. He speaks Mandarin and two Chinese dialects. He plays the guitar Harmonia, and is a big fan of Mark Twain. His positive knowledge includes both the East and the West. Paul, with war as a business, how do you get their people involved to participate in these wars for profit? And what are our responsibilities toward the peace?
Well, your introduction about me, about being a businessman over the 40 years, my business has been the same time my engagement back with China. And during all this time, every day I do business, I have one early morning reflection. What is my cost? How much can I sell my products? What is my profit? And the next question is my profit margin reasonable? Is it ethical? Am I hurting somebody directly or indirectly? I think nowadays we talk about Western capitalism fighting against communism, or the communism in total transference by the Chinese socialism embracing the same common theme of all capitalism and socialism alike, the economy. I like to quote my a very wise man as a Chinese leader by Deng Xiaoping to simplify his phrase about a cat, be that black or white. I take the symbolism of the cats, is it socialism, capitalism, or communism? He said, the cat that catches the mice is a good cat, meaning all the cats are trying to seize a sound economy. And likewise, if you can grasp, you can control, you can earn money with a sound economy, that's a good cat. But there is a little extra value to the Chinese quotation. How to make money without harming anybody. How to make money and profit without destroying people's home. How can we make money benefiting our people and without taking away the benefit of others? Case in point, Gaza today, Palestine today, okay? All this war, US just shipped another batch of military supply to the Israelis. The US supply Israel with $3 to $4 billion a year for military aid. Indeed, Israel is a small country in the middle of all the other Arab states. But at this time and juncture, they are the aggressors. Let me put it another paradigm. I thank you for the invitation to come to the discussions that maybe ordinary people can contribute to a peace process. Okay, I mean, we are here is looking forward not to continue wars, bombing, killing. Okay, one major paradigm is Pakistan, Russia, North Korea, China, US, UK, and Israel are known. They all have nuclear arsenal. Based on what I understand or understood from the Chinese, the missiles alone, the thousands of nuclear missiles possessed by both US and Russia can bomb this planet 100 times. So the paradigms have shifted. Who is the most powerful nation? Because the ultimate power is a total annihilation of the human race. And that's why I joined Jim. We're just a common people. We study, we analyze. We may not be heard by the academia, who is focused on arms deals, negotiation, banking. But the most important thing, the uglier human factor is the human greed. When bankers produce wars, when all the past American presidents had to send how many missiles into the Middle East. And when they have a war accountability, that is time to start to think of our inhumanity when we have to use bombs, so the bankers got paid, so interests are paid, so the congressmen and the politicians can tell their people, we have war so we can sustain your job. This is immoral. If you do know about moral, this is amoral. You cannot killing people, murdering people to build your wealth. No difference than the colonialism in Africa, in India, and in China. China was the last suffrage presented by the pre-capitalism money and greed that build power. China and India are two of the wealthiest nations in the 1700s.
Exactly.
And we have been turning into a pauper state because the military power, because the Industrial Revolution of England, we Chinese created gunpowders for fireworks. Into the hands of the West, they become bombs.
Exactly.
So we have to re-emphasize us as humans. How can we reverse the humanism into a non-ballistic? And to be very truthful, the wars are no longer profitable for these countries, but they live in fear. If they lose their power, they may think of themselves returning to become the economic slaves. The colonization today is no longer the black slaves in Africa or the Asian subjugated into the same status as slaves. Today, United States and UK and their puppet regimes are all economic slaves of the bankers. It's one way to stop or reduce the war nations by understanding their demise.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the important thing for all of us to promote humanity and morality in all the spheres of our life, specifically in politics and these games of power and economy. So let's move on to Mr. Jim. Mr. Jim, you are absolutely against war and have been studying and talking imperialism for over 50 years. Kindly tell us about the history and background of the Cold War era's arms race.
After World War II, and we have to remember that the United States and the Soviet Union were allies in World War II. And also, there's a true history of this. And in this true history, most of the work was done by the good people of the Soviet Union, and they paid the most cost. So after the war, the United States had drawn up plans, probably through one of the Rockefeller think tanks, to continue along this line and make money. This is a time when they created the CIA. Americans kind of, have been told, some good things, but nobody knows any good things because there aren't any good things. Anyway, after the war, an arms race developed. The Soviet Union knew the writing on the wall, and the Soviet Union was developing their own stuff, but the Soviet Union, like China, is not an imperial power. So the US, after this time, they continued with the atomic bomb. They destroyed the island of Bikini in the Pacific and hurt physically so many people from the islands nearby. I mean, this is a big story. Anyway, so the Soviet Union developed their own atomic bomb. Then it just kept going. It just kept going. And, throughout history, the most wealthy families can always be traced back to the war industry. I was at a park in Paris, and it was a Citroën park from the car manufacturer, but they weren't a car manufacturer originally. They were a munitions company. And so, this arms race that was created between the Soviet Union, which really were not interested in colonizing and taking over countries, became the biggest and most expensive in history. Today, anybody that considers using an atomic bomb, is crazy. Right now in the world, there are over 14,000 atomic bombs. This is an incredible waste of money. And it's just costing each nation so much value. And so, United States, Russia, UK, France, China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel. In this, for some reason, and I know the reason, Israel's atomic bombs don't get added into the equation. Now, this is where the bankers have come in and controlled situations. But, this madness has to end. We can't keep wasting lives and people's work and resources on such madness of making weapons. Defense, everybody understands defense. In the United States, they have over 1,000 military installations around the world. A lot of people call it 800 military bases, but there's more than just the bases. This is affecting the whole American population, the whole world, in such a negative way that now's the time this should end. And, I've got some quotes from some American presidents that said some things, and I'm going to talk about that.
Great, exactly. And when that thing is ended, then actual process of peace can be started, because there are the powers and there are the countries which are being following USA just in this all crazy stuff, wars and all these things. So let's move to Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, the UN and other international bodies are supposed to play a big role in limiting the arms race. Why have these organizations not succeeded?
Well, again, when you understand the word hegemony, when you understand when UN was largely sponsored both economically and ideologically by the Americans. Okay, UN with Eleanor Roosevelt started with the best idea, but with time, when the world were not in a good economics base to supply, to furnish, and to supply UN, you don't have a voice. For the longest time, let's put this now in a very open and blunt manner. The world needs more a body of arbitration by UN, by the UN's analysis of every crisis and every beginning of a war, and to stop the war or minimize the war. China, as a latecomer, China has one of the best UN troops servicing UN. The second body in the world is the so-called ICC, International Criminal Court at the Hague, okay, where the economical of the ICC, if they were fully functioned, the situation of the last invasion into Iraq by George W. Bush, by Tony Blair. Both will be taken to the court of ICC and face the tribunal of that wrongful invasion into Iraq. But at this time in point, we do not have such body. Such body have to be beefed up, not based on the status of your wealth. A country like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, China, we have to beef up the power base of the International Criminal Court. We have to take all this wrongful war, skirmishes as it may be. This case situation of Gaza and Israeli can go to the court in ICC. We created those international bodies to foster a balance of peace. But they are being taken over by the power of the hegemony. I will go, same thing. Israel, United States of America, and China are not member of the ICC. All right? In other words, when US want to attack some villain, they want to put them in jail, such as Charles Taylor from Liberia at one time, or pick Milosevic, the former prime minister of Yugoslavia, in jail. They use ICC, making them look good. We are for fairness and justice, and we bust the world villain. But where is ICC when Tony Blair and George W. Bush in the using and laundry soap and talk about the invasion of Iraq with 1 million people killed, 5 million disbanded into ISIS, become terrorism, and move into Europe? If there is a law and order, if ICC would put a simple measure, for every wrongful life you kill, you pay a minimum of 10,000 a head for the so-called third world, and you pay 40,000 for the first world, I will bet you there'll be no more war, because war have no consequences. The war only beef up the merchants of weapons. War only benefit the banks. The banks are kidnapping, the Western banks are kidnapping everybody by paying that stupid SWIFT code. That is 0.12% of the trillions of dollars a day to the banks that finance wars. We have the global organizations in place. Now, let the new player, let the new leaders of the world to make those orders to function, to do the real job. Let's fund ICC. Let's have everybody go to take it to the tribunal in Hague. I don't think Israeli can afford to do what they do in Gaza, or the last time when the US invaded Iraq for no good reason. This is what we have, the world body, but we need the moral stamina to make those changes.
Exactly, 100% correct, and I agree with you, because their political hegemony has enabled them to control all over the world, and veto power system is also a big example of that thing. So let me move to Mr. Jim. Mr. Jim, do you think multinational corporations, defense contractors, military personnel, and politicians are involved to provoke people for conflicts and to sell and purchase weapons?
Again, in this is the Western dialogue, and then there's the Eastern dialogue. In the Western dialogue, the Imperial West, United States, UK, France, are, going all over the world, and they've been stealing and killing. So with this, I want to talk about, Eisenhower's speech that he made as he left. Now, this wasn't really the most brave way to do it, because he had the chance to make some changes while he was president, but he didn't want to leave without saying something from his heart. And that's what he said, every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. This is not a way of life at all in any true sense. Under the cloud of threatening war, it is humanity hanging from a cross of iron. This process that the West has been in has brought so much hardship upon the world, and the time now is to end it, because we have to build a future for the children. We can't only think about our own children, we have to think about the children all over the world. And this immoral process of profiting from war has to end.
Yes, this is very vulgar. This is it's a shame to all humanity, because the reason the three of us are here, the reason I'm joining you, Hussein, is where we started a very simple question. Can we have other alternatives in this planet without wars? So we have to analyze where the war come from. You starting a very good topic. Why wars? Yes, from primitive tribes, we become strong. We invade when we can take on other people's possessions. Jim and I discussed earlier about hegemony, about the power of China. The very sensitive issue today about Xinjiang, okay? Xinjiang was acquired by the Chinese Empire of the Manchu. And before the Manchurians or Qing was the Mongols, which India and us share a little bit of the empire, the Mongolians. Tibet, Xinjiang, all that part of the region have the greatest intrusion, because let's talk about scientifically today, when the winter is harsh, all the tribes, be that the Huns, we call it Xiongnu in Chinese, or they're the descendant with the Turks, and then all the other tribes, they will come across the brick wall, they come into China to loot, to get food. It's survival. I'm not endorsed, nor am I against, but these are the natural phenomena in the past. Okay, but what seems to be allow me a little bit of a bias. What make the Mongolian Empire grow so fastly, as well as the Qing? You know why? Because on the Chinese court, on the right hand, the right arm, are the military, and the Mongolian keep their language to become powerful, to rule the world. But on the left, all the courtesans, they're all Chinese Han ethnic civil servants, including accountants. Okay, this really, the bean counters, to count your money, to count your possession, to count your territory, to tally what you have in cattle and food to supply to the front. Okay, and the Manchus, talk about culture, a soft culture of China. The Manchus have no written language. They have to intermarry to the Mongolians to create a written language. But likewise, when they conquer China, they know China, the center China. There was no China yet, the Middle Kingdom. They know the Middle Kingdom much better than the Middle Kingdom themselves. They know the terrain, they know the military, they know the head count, they know the cattle count. Both Mongolians and the Manchurian Chinese call them, they are the horse stable caretakers. But they learn more than that. By knowing the Han language, they conquer all China. But just like the Mongolians, the Manchurian kings all literate in the Han language. And all the courtesans to administer the empire were using the Han people. So from the time of Tang Dynasty until now, you talk about over 2,000 years, China has been invaded, taken over by non-Han Chinese many times. But what lasts is the core value of humanity. The basic working hard, mind your own business. If you can imagine, let's talk about a little artistry. If any nation who can manage to think how to weave silk from a silkworm, put them the thread, making into threads to become garment. And when silk is selling 6 times the value of gold in Rome, now for me, that is a soft cultural power. No invasion, no guns, no arms. And we have to go back to reflect and think, can we ever go back to a world that we can have civility? That means I don't want to hurt you, Hussein. I like your country, I like your people, I like your food, but I do not have to dominate your country to have what you have. And by God, just talk about Cantonese. No Cantonese ever want to invade the US. Who the hell can eat their stupid hamburger for life? Just put it simply, culture itself don't make you want to invade. They left Chinese for the Southeast Asia because of famine, because religious persecution, because there were systematic murder, ethnic cleansing. Yes, those situations make Chinese migrate to the world. Okay, but let's talk about coming forward. What you and me and Jim are talking is how can we find a world to be re-engaged again without the threats of bombs, missiles. This is where we are at. We are at the time of humanity. Either we'll face a total annihilation. Whoever pulls the first trigger or the first nuclear bomb, the rest will follow. This is at the moment that I think if you and me and Jim have a sense of urgency about our existence and our fellow citizens, that we can visit like we do here. This may sound like a dream and idealism, but it's not. To living in peace is the most basic. I trust all the people in Gaza, all the people in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem are searching for the same thing. Let us live in peace.
Exactly. So that's the purpose of this discussion, that how can we present like options or solutions, that there are many more ways to make money rather than like making money from war. And that's the message of this conversation and this discussion. And if we talk about China, China has been like getting profits or earning money even without involving in the wars. And China never invaded any country in its history. So these are the examples, and these are the examples of wisdom we have to utilize in our lives and the ways we think. So, Mr. Paul, I'm going to ask you a question because you have been responding to the answer of Mr. Jim.
Okay.
What is the role of intelligence agencies in business of wars?
I missed a point. What is the world's intelligence? You're talking about the what is? Maybe I can answer you in this manner. After 40, 50 years away from China, I left China. I was born in 1948. I left China when I was 5 years old, but I was still within the Chinese territory. I was in Macau. Where in Macau, I lived and I was embraced the education, have no other choice to have an all-boys school, all-girls school. I went to a Roman Catholic Salesian school. And from that school, I have exposure to the language such as singing mass in the Greek Gregorian chant and serving mass with Latin. Plus, my father went to school in France, so I always have the notion about the Romance language. I loved it, okay? So I become a transcultural from speaking Shanghai dialect only. When I got to Macau, I speak my mother's tongue, which is Cantonese. So I have lost some of the speaking of Shanghai, but continue with Cantonese. And in the transit into Brazil, meeting other Chinese, I acquire Mandarin. And I can understand Sichuan by the association with the people we grew up in Brazil. So by association, we learn the language, we learn the culture. And I think as a cross-cultural person, almost every time you go, and you do the same thing as Pakistani, or Jim as an American now in France and Italy, and say, I'm doing this. Am I doing this properly? First of all, you don't assume what I do is correct. I don't intrude. I'm not a hegemon. I usually ask, how we bow in Asia, because it's very simple, 10 fingers. That means that it's a peace. All my hands of hurt and harm are in front of me, and I bow my head to you and give you my most vulnerable part of my life. Versus the handshakes from the West, started out with even the Romans, is the arm called arm, the arm of arms. This is the weapon to kill, okay? In Brazil, I learned to hug, we embrace. We kiss the cheeks, even among men, we embrace, we open so all about greeting, all about human trust. I am grateful of my Chinese learning. And after all these years, as 2 years ago, for 10 years, I've been advocating one single vocabulary called conscience. Because the first time in my life, in all this year, even I'm in business, I'm still a psychologist. I'm still educational psychologist, teaching counseling psychologist. I pick up one word, which is a verb, a noun, by Brazilian psychologist named of Paulo Freire. He used the word conscientization. I said, wait a minute. Not mention God, not mention deity. We are raised Roman Catholic. He was also Roman Catholic. Conscience is come in me. Conscience in all of us, before you are even embracing Hindu or Muslim or Islamic values or Jewish faith. And I just find out at age 70, I said, God, we know about our conscience, and yet we never exercise. Conscience only comes every now and then, it flashes to the world. For example, the famous story about Jesus Christ from Galileo, from Galilee, from the time of the Jesus, he was highlighted when he raised a man dying, which is Samaritan. The Samaritans in the region, they're hated by the ethnic Jews. So I asked myself, did Christ have that desire to help a dying man? Is that because his Christian values, his Judaic values? He in America, this is almost a joke I want to share with you and Jim. We drive around here with tons of squirrels running around. We have chipmunks. We have turkey. Wisconsin is famous, known that we have many roadkill. But let me tell you, many people had get into car accidents by trying to avoid a little animal come across of your highway. That's another symbolism of conscience. We do not want to kill. We do not have the instinct to kill. If you get into a car damage because a little squirrel across the road, or deer, a young baby deer, a fawn we have now, we human have a kindness in us. This is what I think Buddhism, a Buddha, trying to highlight. We have to have this universal sense of compassion and sense of peace. I hope this is one of the many reasons I'm here, because I talk about conscience. Conscience have nothing to do to antagonize religion. Many religions talk about goodness, kindness, and gratitude. I am forever have the gratitude in my heart because I have good teachers. I have good parents. I have good relatives. I'm always grateful. For me to speaking today, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, some French. I'm grateful for the beginning when I learned Latin and when I learned the Gregorian chant. That is an oral tradition that I will try to revive, because we're dying. We sing. And so I have hope. I hope. Why? Because I have you now. I have Jim. I just found two people that we are sharing something that we think is so simple. Just extend yourself. You created this dialogue and to wake up others. How can we be good humans? Forget about the war. Forget about the weapon. How can we be good people? That's that simple. It's nothing complicated. You can be a Christian, you can be a Jew, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Buddhist, you can be a Confucianism. For Confucianists, there's no such thing. Confucian, Tao, and Buddha were never religion. If people understand the Asians, we do not have that so-called monotheist. We don't have the original sin. How can you as a father to think about your son the minute he was born, he had committed a sin against my God? I'm not here to against monotheists. I love Mother Teresa. I love my patron Saint Paul, because his 4 languages, because his exposure, he spread the gospel of the Christians to Rome. There are passages in life that we're all trying to be good, trying to be kind, and I am forever grateful to all the goods that have done for me. People have given me their time, their life, my teachers, my professors, right? We get the thing of the positive of the humanity versus the misery to get war going, get bullets going, how many rounds they have to bomb the Middle East. I don't care if Obama, I don't care if it's Trump or any of the past American presidents. They basically have a war criminal record on their books, because the industry tells them how many bombs they have to do, how many they have to bomb, because every time they bomb, there is an economic turnover. So the world have also understand not just the history of our lives, but understand the history of economics and who was in control in the last 500 years of the world economics. Who are these bankers? Who are these people in controlling and funding colonizations and funding the American hegemony? This is a tough question. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying that, have you contributed? You know, I even feel horrible because my money had gone into $3 billion to Israel to fight unarmed Palestinians. My tax dollar, if you want to question your conscience, question your money. My money have killed people. My money have done in Afghanistan. My money have been fighting wars because we have blood on our hands. When you know of the direct consequences, you will start to become active to reduce violence, to stop war.
Exactly. And sir, you're right. We all are part of this process in a way. And I will repeat thing you said about the faiths. And I would say that faith isn't a thing, or faith doesn't matter about the need, what we need to be. Because whatever I think, whatever I feel, whatever my faith is or your faith is, it's a personal matter. But when we are going to talk about common good or like global values, then we have to be ready to accept the values which are good, which are beneficial for all over the world and for all people or all human beings. So for becoming a good person, it is not essential to follow the faith we believe in. We can accept common things or like familiar things and good things which need to be focused. So that's the way of enlightenment. That's a way of following our own consciousness, and that's a way to be a good person or good human being. So I would like to move to Mr. Jim for the next question. Mr. Jim, people are negatively impacted by war. This includes the children, taxpayers, soldiers, and the planet. What is the impact of these scripted wars on people and their countries?
these wars of imperialism, the business, big business of the West, are impacting every aspect of our lives. It's destroying the environment. The U.S. military is the number one producer of CO2 emissions in the world. The amount of children that are killed, the trauma to children is unacceptable on every level. There's no excuse for killing children. There's none. No excuse for killing. This has to stop. Okay, but the thing that we're seeing recently that's really been horrible, and like Paul says, the American presidents have a lot of justice to face. This is just true. I mean, and if you're, and again, I don't take a personal offense because I was born somewhere. My knowledge and my caring is based on, my travels around the world, and that I love everybody. Anyway, so we've created, or not we, the Western imperial countries have created 37 million refugees. I mean, this isn't a joke. Oh yeah, Rockefeller's made money, Citibank made money, ITT made money, the Lockheed Martin made money. That's not what the world is about. And we talked about this in the other conversation. This is not what the world is about. This should not be leading the world. What they've done to Afghanistan, what they've done to Iraq, what they've done to Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, the Philippines, Libya, and Syria. Justice has to come, and I hope justice comes soon. I know that the people at the top, they usually get off. They got off in Germany. They always get off. But this has got to stop. We have to care enough, and we have to draw a line in the sand. We have to put our foot down. It's our job to protect the children. And if we're not doing that, it doesn't matter if we're an American and we say we're a Christian, but we're supporting war. The American people have faced, and I feel sorry for them, they have faced 24/7 propaganda all my life. And they don't have any idea of what the truth is on a global level. They are so isolated, and we can see, those of us that understand the world, that things are not going too well for America. They've got a lot of problems.
Echo what Jim has said. It doesn't matter what Jim says or not. Jim is born as an American. There are good people in every culture, in every nationality. Jim knows my love and affection for Charles Dickens, my love for Mark Twain. Why? Because he's one of the few Americans writers seems to have sympathetic, have empathy, have Mark Twain against the Spanish War, because the same flimsiness, how the U.S. started the war with Spain and take over the Southwest large area, Cuba, eventually Puerto Rico and Philippines and Guam and all that. Mark Twain did not like it. And another point I just want to highlight, Jim just reminded me of, the war, as I said, when war has no consequences. If there's every life ticket in Iraq worth 10,000 minimum, there'll be no war. The same thing going on in Vietnam. Let's talk about the Agent Orange. I work on a university campus, an American campus, with talking to American returnees, veterans from Vietnam who suffer Agent Orange. We took them to the veterans and clinics, entities, and you were just bluntly told by these government agencies, we're aware, this 40 years ago, we're aware of the fact of the damages of the Agent Orange to the local people as well to our soldiers. But we do not have the budget. We do not have the money to take care of them. 40 years later, my own brother-in-law who went to Vietnam, regardless, they will get extra compensation just because of Agent Orange. So it tells you, we all know our sins, crimes, okay? Sin is not a sin. If you're not religious, you don't think you're committing any crime. Crime is not a crime. You think that I'm just going my duty. Look at the cost in the psychological treatment, so-called PTSD, okay? Post-traumatic symptoms. In any event, time for American rethink about how to cultivate and how to cure the damage of our souls, not a religious souls, but the damage has already created because nobody was born to kill. I came at a time in 1960s. I came to America for two very silly reasons. I came because the lyrics by Peter, Paul, and Mary, with the lyrics singing, "Where have all the flowers gone?" I enjoy a first Catholic president, Kennedy. I came to America with hope. And look what I have today. This is a culture when they don't encourage thinking with empathy, thinking with sympathy. If nothing else, just reflect on your past. When the soldiers were sent to kill, he cannot find that solution. Where, as a psychologist, I find that this to be very, very troublesome. He cannot find a solution. He cannot find an intellectual peace that I forgive myself because I only playing as a soldier at the command of a nation. I'm defending my nation. And that is why, Jim, Mark Twain's patriotism quote, I use it daily. Socrates' thinking quote, I use it daily. I don't know anything. My job as a teacher to make people think. And what is most dangerous, is our leaders, our commanders with weapons and arms and push a button, we can send soldiers abroad. They are not capable to reflect. Reflection. You do not want to send the people to die for very flimsy reasons. Worse, by your industrialists and by your bribed congressmen. Only America has a most incriminating practice called lobby. Money buys votes. Money influences the senators, the congressmen, to do what they want them to do.
Exactly.
I pray
Sir,
China
we
never will have a system.
We call it bribe in Pakistan and India, but you call it favors and these soft words for this thing.
But you know, for example, you cannot. I don't see when you are a people who have no longer feel empowered. I emphasize culture. The CCI is cross-cultural institute. When 40 years ago I went on the streets to visit, Jim knows, the veterans, the homeless, they live on the streets side. Okay, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I discovered something phenomenal. I said, why don't you want to come back to your regular housing, regular situation? One young man looked at me, he's not young, he just left at that time, maybe about 27. He flashed me out with 2 credit cards. He said, Paul, I have a condominium apartment in Milwaukee. I can go to my father's house, my parents' house anytime. Why am I here? He said, because these people understand me. They understand my pain. They understand my agony, the purpose in Vietnam. I don't have a community who understand me. He showed me 2 credit cards in his hand. I almost dropped in tears. It's no longer the issue of money. They want a sense of belonging, that all those people around him suffering through Agent Orange and other disease, alcoholism, these are his tribe. You understand? The richness.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. Let's imagine, sir, let's imagine. This is the condition of a person who has been involved in killing. Now just imagine the people who are being killed, or the people or the families of the people who are being killed or affected in those conflicts. Just imagine the pain of those people.
Yes, absolutely. I just talk about the magnitude. We talk about these are the soldiers who gone into America, who gone into war. Give you one more episode. I was American campus, 1967, 1972. I was all national swimming champion in Brazil for a Jewish cup called Hebraica. I came with a scholarship to America. I play sports. I know my floor residents who smoke, who don't smoke, who don't smoke. But one day, one guy come me, grabbed me by the arm and said, "You and I going downtown. We're going to drink tonight. Don't stop me." I said, "Tom, why?" He just showed me a card. I am 1A. Jim, you understand, right? I'm 1A. That means I'm drafted. I'm going to war. Okay? I come to America, listen to the movies. Yes, we could quote this trauma ideas, cinematographic. In America, I when I came into the 60s, there was a television series called Happy Days. Fonzie. Remember, Jim?
Yeah, for sure.
Happy Days. I can imagine these Americans were so happy, chewing gums, greasy hair, motorcycle like Jimmy Dean. 6 months later, they're going down to the foxhole in
Just
Vietnam.
in series. Just in series, sir.
You follow me? The cultural shock. As a person, I go through many cultural shocks. Okay, I share the ashes of native Brazilians when their grandfather died. The ashes got to be burned. The Chavantes in the western part of Brazil. The ashes are putting in all the meal, the soup bowl. I was accused by my fellow Catholics. Paul, you have committed cannibalism. But when I come back, I said, 2 of my priests have shared the same meal. When you, at the time, when you do, the locals do. I'm not saying that I'm consuming cannibal, but yes, I partake the respect of the ashes of the elder. So many times in life, you question and question again, what is right, what is wrong. I'm doing this is right for the moment, but I'm going home, I'm a cannibalist. Okay? But this part of the price. This is part of the learning experience that you and me and Jim can transpire and share with a fellow man. I don't like what happened, but I have to do what I have done. So I came to America talking about, wow, happy days. In the next 10 years is dead body coming home. The sound of the silence. I learned that in Brazil, I get myself in tears. And every time you hear the bugle or the burial of a soldier or folding the flag or giving to a widow, it just hits you constantly. You're asking, why are we in Vietnam? Okay?
Despite these all pains, despite these all sufferings, despite these all blames, America has, in first world, America has highest number of homeless people. Isn't a worse condition? Despite all these sufferings, despite all these blames that America is doing this, America is doing this, America has highest number of homeless people or homeless population in the first world. So let's move
You know
on.
why? I want to answer that very importantly. I hope the rest of America wake up. Because the homeless people have a common culture threat. Their suffering, the misery, their drug intake. They are being abandoned by their family. They've been abandoned by their spouses. Whatever. Maybe their fault, maybe it's their fault. They have that homeless culture. They share. That culture means more than the conditions of life. They don't care if it's a warm shower or a good meal. They know the people they are bonding. I found that 40 years ago with the veterans who stayed with the homeless. I share your view. Oh, such a number, horrible. This, America first world. We're making $1 billion. But the homeless is trying to tell the world, we have a culture. We bond. The other culture we look at is Lily White, clean building, puritanical, Germanic, Lutheran, whatever. The image of the old Lutheran clean is not their culture anymore, because in their poverty, they find bonding issues. They understand more than a therapist.
Pain bonds them. Exactly.
This is one phenomenon we have to bring it to the open and discuss, not attacking it.
Exactly.
Americans got to time to reflect, why do we have all this many homeless? Of course, the housing in most cities are no longer within the reach of the homeless, but they bond because they have a common suffering culture, disillusionment of a culture. They do not see one politician representing them, because one politician of greed and power no longer belong to their world. We have a collective problem. I'm no longer talking about homeless. It's an American problem.
So let's move to the next question. Mr.
Yes.
Paul, how can we, I would mean we means each country, help to prevent this arms race, sale, and procurement of weapons?
You know what we have to do? Very simple. I shared with Jim before, and I shared them with you. We are all very much, we're illiterates of the world and regional economy. We have to get our young people to understand the word economy is a community in the use of money. I was in Brazil when I was 14 years old. Two words have never granted me the comprehension. The first word is economics. The second word is called oligarchy. Okay? My priest friend took me on the side. Said, Paul, you want to understand economics? Okay. Does your mother speak Portuguese? No. So you do the translation. Yes. You tell the servant, tell the maid what to do. I said, well, I tell them I go with mom to do shopping. Okay. He says, very simple, that your mom does not make any earning. No, the money is given by your dad. So your mother has to make a budget. Okay. I remember we broke a dish. We sent the maid to replace the dish with the same money, $2.50, something like that. Because the inflation, the servant come back and say, Mrs., the money is not enough. It is now $3. My mother would just scream in Brazil. It was $2.50 last week, and now it's $3. Okay. I understood early on the purchasing because the price had gone up. Every child in this world, I mean, every child in this world from first grade on have to understand how much daddy makes, how much brings in the food, what mom cooking, how can we be fed? The world have been dumbing down by the money elites. I'm not blaming bankers. I'm blaming the so-called economists displaced the rest of the world. A stupid dumb dictator, be that in the Philippines, Pakistan, India, Mongolia, anywhere, in my Latin America, every single military man were paid by the Americans. First, they send in the School of America. We teach you, we coach you how to become military. Then comes with the military, also no. Indirectly, they're being sold. You can get cash. My wife is an exchange student under the program called American Field Study. My ex-Brazilian girlfriend had attended the program called Youth for Understanding, also high school exchange programs. When I finished college in 72, I was interviewed by the top executive of Youth for Understanding to become a counselor director for the Youth for Understanding. When I find out that was a program used by the American military and the diplomatic corps to bring in the military, the leaders of the third world, corrupt or not, and bring it back to America. This kind of situation in Latin America that everybody have ignored. Honduras today is still as a military training base for the American School of Terror called School of America. Nicaragua, El Salvador, when Americans said Latin America is our backyard, meaning nobody touched Latin America. So what happened? Now we have all the refugees coming to our doors. We destroyed their country. We put in military dictatorship. We bribed hierarchy. okay, the oligarchy now coming in, the country can never go forward. Now America had to eat it, have to bite the bullet for all these people they corrupt. Now all the people, with one little storm in Central America last year, everybody coming flooding to the doors to America. We have to understand this is economy. I'm not saying to smear America, but when we popularize the understanding, your child, your teenage child, your 12-year-old should understand how much does we make. We make the world, we are enslaving the world by not teaching them economics. What happened to China? Very simple. What is One Belt, One Road? No more. No more loans. We don't need your money. Militarily, China was smart to move the entire operation inland. We don't want to fight the pirates of the English and the sea with Americans. We go inland. We get our own financing. And I never forgot, as much as Jim is so proud of Xi Jinping, I forgot who said it. Or it's the Chinese quote, we cannot become a world hegemony. China cannot afford to be the only rich country in the region. We have to empower our neighbors. That statement hit me very hard. You cannot be the only rich man, only the mansions, the servants, the slaves, if you cannot empower your neighbors. That is why the One Belt, One Road, for me, is a huge significance.
Exactly.
You get to think of others. You don't think of just yourself. And I hope this Asian spirit, if I dare to say, don't put Chinese alone. Indian, Chinese, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, we can think. We have to create collective good, collective economy with collective benefits.
Exactly.
This is the core mission of my education. Empower people. Not just give them chewing gums, not give them chocolates, so they will go to dentists, they'll be rotting. Giving has to giving with intelligence, with articulation. Giving with your heart, giving them education, teach them the ability to learn. Now we can do this kind of teaching on Zoom, on all the platforms because of COVID. This is the golden opportunity. We can teach, we can tape, and just foster. No charge, just donation if we need to be. We have to do something that the world can benefit, not just for the elites. Our children don't have to go to Harvard or Yale, nor Cambridge, not even Tsinghua or Beijing University. We are reaching to the hearts and souls of the people by this instrument. This instrument, internet, coming from the military use of the CIA, of the American military, make this weapon of destruction into a weapon of learning.
Exactly.
That is why I ride the same train. I call it Jim. Jim got put me on this train. It was 2 of you, now it's 3 of us. I hope by next week we can get 4, we can get 5, then we can have multiple rooms. This is how things started, from the heart and not from the pocket money.
So it's a great opportunity for us to share something or to like discuss very, very basic ideas of like our lives and the basic topics which are affecting our lives. And yes, you are saying right, and you're correct that most moral and most like correct way to do things is to empower our neighbors, to empower people, and that's how we can get benefit collectively.